Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. I am Joyo19 and it's over. The arduous events that have transpired over the last few weeks have come to a close. The United States has its 56th Speaker of the House of Representatives, and it is not who I nor really anyone else expected. It is James Michael Johnson, born January 30th, 1972, from Louisiana. He was the vice chair of the House Republican Conference for 2 years, and he was the chair of the Republican Study Committee for the same time. He is a fairly newcomer in regards to the House of Representatives, joining only in 2015. And he is one of the most controversial members in the House of Representatives. So for him to now be Speaker is a handful to discuss. And that's what we're going to be doing today. And so, let's just jump right into it. So, Mike Johnson was nominated on the 4th ballot for the October House Speaker election in the House of Representatives. He was elected over Jim Jordan, Steve Scalise, Tom Emmer, and of course to be replacing Kevin McCarthy after Matt Gaetz filed for Kevin McCarthy's termination from that role. So Mike Johnson was nominated as a form of compromise candidate, as someone who would be able to appeal to both moderates and conservative members of the Republican Party. And I will be the first to say that I don't know how that happened. Because to put it quite frankly, this man is the most conservative individual in the House of Representatives, and I think he might just be one of the most conservative people really ever to be in the position that he is now, because usually when you look at the Speaker of the House, they have to toe the line between members of their party who are moderate and members of their party who have different factional interests. Mike Johnson is someone who I would usually think would have no chance of being Speaker, A, because he has very little experience in the grand scheme of things, much less than Jim Jordan and these other individuals. He is on a few committees, but other than that, I don't see really anything other than the House Republican Conference as the vice chair. But even then, that's not as much as you might see as someone being on the House Oversight Committee or being on the Judiciary Committee. It's just not enough. So I would have to speculate as to how he's gotten this position, because the man would never appeal, in my opinion, to moderate members of the Republican Party, and yet they voted in complete favor of him. I think it's unanimous. So I think that's interesting. So we've seen, generally speaking, a lot of candidates come and go over the past few weeks. Tom Emmer, of course, just a few days ago, dropped in and out basically 4 hours after being nominated, because there was so much tension and conflict within the internal politics of the Republican Party. No one knew what was going to happen. Nobody knew where things were going. Nobody in the media knew, and it was all just speculation. Mike Johnson was proposed as a compromise candidate to replace those members of the House Freedom Caucus who couldn't get through. That is Jim Jordan, friend of the caucus Steve Scalise. But Mike Johnson, to me, although I don't know that he's a part of the caucus itself, he is someone who I absolutely think would appeal to it, and only it. My guess is that he was able to propose the case that because they'd been going for so long, and because it was creating a factional and really electoral divide in the Republican Party, they just wanted to get it over with and say, we'll have a speaker. As long as it appeals to a few people, it's going to be enough. We just need to get things under control and retake stability. And that is exactly what, in his speech, Mike Johnson provided. When he was nominated, he said that he wanted to restore faith and integrity, particularly biblical integrity, because he's a religious man, to the office of the Speaker and, of course, to the House of Representatives. And it'll be interesting to see how well he will be able to deliver that, or how well he will stick to that rhetoric on an electoral scale. But I would like to also go through, considering the fact that he has been so controversial, I'd like to go through his political positions. If we go down here, the moderators on Wikipedia have been editing this like crazy. It's been about an edit every 2 minutes, so it may have changed since the last time I've read it, but I'd like to just go over a broad analysis of it. The big one is abortion. In stark contrast to the appeals and to the views of a number of presidential candidates, Johnson supports a national abortion ban and, of course, opposes Roe v. Wade. That is incredibly anti-abortion. That is complete no exception from what I can see here. He supported, in fact, he co-sponsored, the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act of 2017, which would ban abortion after 20 weeks, and then the Heartbeat Protection Act, which would ban abortion after 6 weeks. And that is very interesting. That, to me, wouldn't be as big of an issue in regards to how he would appeal to other representatives, so much as it would be a problem on the electoral front. I just don't see how the Republicans maintain their control over the House of Representatives with someone so out of touch with moderate and independent voters. We have climate change down here. That's not going to be as significant a fact. Okay, so his relationship with Donald Trump. This is one of the most prudent factors about his speakership. He was one of the most ardent supporters of Trump throughout the 2020 election, particularly after it, and he was seen as a fervent election denier throughout the January 6 riots and throughout the electoral certification process in early 2021. He supported Donald Trump throughout his impeachment processes, both of them, and he also served as a member of Trump's legal defense team. Again, that is going to be a problem in regards to the electorate. Places like Wisconsin, places like Arizona, places like Georgia, they're all going to be very hesitant to support candidates backed by Mike Johnson in the midterms or by the next cycle for the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And for Congress, they're going to be very hesitant to support them. Now, this is the one that's really interesting. So, in regards to LGBTQ+ rights, Johnson, I think, is probably one of the most conservative people I've ever seen in Congress, let alone the highest position in the House of Representatives. I haven't seen someone say this, but before he came into Congress, he argued in favor of criminalizing consensual same-sex relationships through sodomy laws. Now, the electorate, just generally speaking, is not going to respond well to that. He says that it's inherently unnatural, and that goes a step beyond what a lot of Republicans have been saying, because there's a sense that you have to toe the line, particularly with Republican presidential candidates. You have to be able to toe the line in regards to the individual freedom, while also opposing perhaps same-sex marriage or other institutions such as it. So we can see that people like Jim Jordan may be able to make that case fairly broadly, but for this man to be so vigorously opposed to the concept, that is going to be very politically problematic for him, I think, in the future. I think Democrats are going to hammer on that explicitly. I think a lot of Republicans, moderates particularly, are going to be unnerved for that. We look at the log cabin Republicans, which is a faction that's actually growing, I believe. They are obviously going to be very despondent to Mike Johnson. And I think that generally speaking, a lot of people are going to try and distance themselves from him after the comments that were made. And I think that the true impact of this is going to be seen over the next few months. But this is something that I think will be very interesting to look out for. And if we go down further, we can just see that there are even more controversial statements, raising the minimum wage, retaking prayer in public schools, talking about the separation of church and state, Social Security and Medicare, and we can see from these factors that he's more so looking like a 1980s conservative than he is a modern-day conservative. That is what people like to call a paleo-conservative as opposed to a neocon. But that is Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. I think he's going to be a very interesting person to discuss over the next few months. I think his political positions will certainly bring into question his electability in the next cycle, but I think that will be something that time will tell. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you.